My girlfriend and I recently moved into our dream house. It's everything we've ever wanted. Cozy, spacious, and perfectly suited for us. We also have a cat named Bella, whom we rescued together, so everything felt just right when we first settled in. The only downside was the house to our right. It was clearly abandoned. The owner had started renovations but never finished. The layout of the neighborhood is such that there's a space between our house and the abandoned one, leading to the back garden. Next to it is the entrance to the abandoned house's own garden, which also has no fence separating the two properties. The owner had removed the old fence to put up a new one but never completed the job. So, both back gardens are completely open to one another. Behind the abandoned house, there's another property separated by a fence, and from what we could tell, a group of young men lived there. Occasionally, we would see them walking through the abandoned garden and cutting across to
reach the street. At first, we didn't think much of it. They might have known the owner and had permission to be there. Then came our first night in the house. My girlfriend and I were in the back garden, soaking in the quiet, looking at the stars, when we noticed something unsettling. There was a man in the window of the abandoned house, just staring at us. No expression, no movement, just a blank stare. He was sitting in a dark room, which made the whole thing even more eerie. At first, we thought maybe he was just curious about the new neighbors. But after half an hour of him not moving, we decided it was best to head inside. The next few days were normal. I went to work while my fiancé continued unpacking. But one night we decided to sit in the garden again. It was dark, but we were enjoying the moment, talking about life, when suddenly we heard movement from the old wooden board fence. 3 men appeared out of nowhere, standing there, just staring at us.
"Are you okay?" I asked, noticing how they just appeared without a word. The youngest-looking one, maybe around 29, was holding a large bag, and we had no idea what was inside. He offered us some stolen washing up tablets. Of course, we politely declined, but I made a joke about it because the whole situation felt so awkward. He smiled, said, "Okay," and they left just as quickly as they came. What struck me was how they had just walked right into our garden, no hesitation, like they had every right to be there. We tried to brush it off as a one-time thing, but things only escalated from there. Over the next few weeks, they began walking through our garden more often, and behaving in ways that seemed designed to intimidate us. They would get into the abandoned house by lifting up the broken fence and walking right through. Now, to give you some context, my girlfriend and I are both 20 years old, so the thought that these men might be trying to intimidate us as young women really started to worry us. One day, while I was cleaning the front room, 2 police officers came by the house and entered the abandoned garden. They lifted the fence and started looking around before leaving without saying a word. At that point, I thought it was a bit odd, but didn't think much of it. However, a few days later, the police knocked on our door. They explained that the house behind us was now vacant. The men who had been in and out of that property had been evicted for antisocial behavior. Not just toward us, but other neighbors too. Honestly, we were relieved to hear that. Even though nothing physical had happened, it was reassuring to know they wouldn't have the chance to escalate things further. We continued to get settled into our new house, and life slowly began to feel more normal. But one afternoon, as I was taking a bath, I heard a loud bang outside. I rushed to get dressed and ran to find my girlfriend. She was at the window, recording something in the now empty garden. I asked what was going on, but she shushed me. After a moment, she explained that a man we had never seen before was pointing at our bedroom window. When she noticed him, he immediately sprinted toward our house. He tried our door handle, then ran back to the garden, threw the broken fence aside, and started banging on the windows of the abandoned house. We called the police right away. They came, watched the video, took a statement, and left. We were both completely shaken. Why would he try our door and then break into that house? What was his plan? That night, while we were in bed, we heard whistling. It wasn't like the usual sounds you hear outside. It was more like a man's whistle used to harass women. It was 2:16 a.m. We listened in silence, and then, to our horror, we heard tapping on our window. We quickly checked the security cameras, but they hadn't recorded anything. Whoever it was must have left soon after because the noises stopped. We were too scared to sleep that night. No, the next day we decided to stay at my mom's house. When we returned the next morning, we noticed something unsettling. Our Ring doorbell was gone. It had been taken off the door and placed on the ground. The SD card was missing too. Someone had clearly been back at our house, and we knew exactly who it was. We called the police again, and they told us to keep all doors and windows locked. The woman on the phone even said that removing the camera could be a sign that something more serious was planned, which terrified us even more. But at least she was being honest. Let me start by saying, I know this may sound paranoid, crazy, or even delusional, but everything I'm about to tell you really happened. It began with faces, or more accurately, faces that looked almost the same but with something just a little off about them. 3 months ago, I ended a long-term relationship with my ex, Caleb. We'd been together for almost 2 years, but the breakup was long overdue. Caleb wasn't violent or abusive in the traditional sense, but he was controlling in the most subtle, insidious way. It was the kind of behavior that creeps up on you. He'd track when I was on my phone, quiz me on my daily activities, and check if my answers matched. After I left him, I thought I was finally free. I changed my number, deleted my social media, and moved to a new apartment. Then, one morning, I went to a small coffee shop near my new place. I'd only been there a couple of times before. The barista, a girl around my age, smiled when I walked up to the counter. But there was something about her smile that didn't sit right. She tilted her head and said, "Good morning, Sunshine." I froze. Caleb used to call me Sunshine. It wasn't a common nickname, and he always used it sarcastically when I was upset. He would say, "What's wrong, Sunshine?" like he was trying to get under my skin. I brushed it off at first. Maybe it was a coincidence, but then it happened again. A few days later, I took a rideshare to work. It was a different driver than usual. An older guy, probably in his 50s. He kept glancing at me through the rearview mirror like he was trying to recognize me. And then, out of nowhere, he asked, "Ever figure out what you're running from?" He said it as casually as could be, like we were having a normal conversation. The words sent a chill down my spine. Caleb had said that to me once, years ago, after I told him I needed time to figure things out. He leaned in close and asked, "Ever figure out what you're running from?" Now, 2 strangers had repeated his exact words. It didn't stop there. A woman at the grocery store bumped into me and whispered, "You don't get to just disappear." A guy on the street passed me and said, "Still wearing your hair like that?" Another person who worked in my building said, "You always like this song," while humming the exact tune Caleb used to play when we had arguments. It wasn't their faces that freaked me out. It was the way they looked at me, like they knew me, or at least thought they did. I started thinking I was losing it, but then I did something I wasn't proud of. I contacted Caleb's sister. I didn't message him directly, but I asked her to tell him to stop whatever he was doing. Maybe he'd hired someone to follow me, or was somehow pulling strings behind the scenes. I just wanted it to end. The next day, his sister replied with a message that shocked me. "I don't know what you're talking about. Caleb's been in rehab for 6 weeks with no phone." I didn't believe her at first. I thought she was covering for him. But a week later, she posted a picture of him on Facebook, holding a 1-day sober chip. He looked pale, sunken in, and completely different. So, it wasn't Caleb, at least not directly. But it didn't make sense. These strangers were repeating things he'd said. They knew things they shouldn't. I started digging into Caleb's past and remembered something he once mentioned. A forum he was a part of, a place where people shared tactics. It seemed like a productivity or self-improvement group, but now I realize it was something much more sinister. These strangers, probably recruited by Caleb, were mimicking his words, repeating his phrases, and even wearing his expressions, all to ensure I never truly got away. They weren't stalking me in the traditional sense. It was psychological warfare, like graffiti sprayed on my life. It was a reminder that even if Caleb was physically gone, he would never truly leave me. So, I left again. I moved to a new place. Disappeared off-so. Curial media, and even dyed my hair. I told my friends not to tell anyone where I was, but it didn't work. A week ago, I was walking home from the bookstore when a woman passed me on the street. She said, "Still hiding behind books, sunshine." She didn't even stop to look at me, just said it as if she'd known me forever. I don't think this will ever end. Maybe Caleb hired some underground service to do this to me. Maybe it's a sick game now, a contest to see who can scare me the most without touching me. I don't trust anyone's face anymore. The paranoia is slowly destroying my mental health, and I don't know how to stop it. The strange whistling, banging, and attempts to get back into our house continued for weeks. We filed multiple police reports, but nothing seemed to change. They never tried our door again, so we held on to the hope that things were over. But 3 weeks later, something happened that would shake us to the core. One night, while we were in bed watching funny videos from our security cameras, we checked the live feed just out of curiosity. That's when we saw him again. The same man from before, but this time, he was wearing a black mask covering his mouth and nose. His hood was up, and he was standing in front of our garden with his arms spread wide, as if he was imitating the crucifixion. He stared up at our bedroom window, tilting his head as if to study us. We froze, terrified. At that point, we had moved the camera inside the house so it didn't record anything outside. In the heat of the moment, we were so shaken that we didn't even think to screen record what was happening. After standing there for a while, he turned and walked across the street. Then just stood there, staring at our house for about 30 minutes. We called the police once again, but their response was frustratingly dismissive. They told us that it wasn't illegal to stare at someone's property, and they made us feel like we were overreacting. We couldn't sleep for days. Every little noise outside had us on edge. Then, one night at 2:52 a.m., we received another notification from our cameras. I woke up my girlfriend and told her that someone was outside. We checked the camera feed and saw 2 masked men coming from the side of our house. They were shining flashlights into our windows, and one of them, the same man who had been harassing us, was holding a crowbar. What were they trying to do? Why us? What was their purpose? For days, the harassment continued. They would stand across the street, pointing, waving, or shouting things up at our window. Every time we looked out, he would be there, staring at us. It was clear that it was meant to intimidate us, and it worked. We kept calling the police, but their blunt is just earlier today. We got another update. The man was standing outside again, staring up at our window. This time, we got it on video. We're absolutely terrified, but we don't know what else to do. We'll keep you updated if anything else happens.